Hi guys, Mr. Jaeger here, and welcome. Welcome back to Star Citizen, and welcome to day 2 of the IAE 2954. It is Aegis Day, and our character is already bored of the thing. Come on, character. Focus. Attention. But yes, welcome back to Invictus. I keep fucking doing that. Every time I do this event, I go Invictus, and my brain... And then when I go to Invictus, I'll say Intergalactic Aerospace. God damn it. Welcome back to IAE 2954. Today is Aegis Day, and the Expo Hall is absolutely filled to the brim with all sorts of vessels. So we've got a lot to talk about here, and without further ado, let's get cracking, because in the previous episode, it may have taken us about a few minutes. I mean, okay, 5th anniversary and all that, so it's understandable, but I want to give you guys a quick intro, so here we go. To start the day off, we're going to be having a look at the Sabres, though I'm not going to go as in-depth with these particular ships, he says, because I did do a lot of talking about them in the Invictus launch week, so I kind of want to be a bit fair and have this event be more dedicated to the civilian ships, as a lot of these vessels we're seeing are all, we've talked in depth, quite a lot of detail on in Invictus launch week, and I'll be covering them even more in depth. Oh my god, there's clones! Anyway, so going over to the first vessel of the event, we are looking at the Sabre. The Sabre has actually received quite a lot of love in the last in the last patch of year of Star Citizen, with a number of new releases, the new Sabre Firebird, the Sabre Peregrine, whatever, as well as a number of updates to the systems. But overall, this particular OG girl is still in and she looks absolutely lovely. I keep kind of I keep fighting myself in regards to whether or not I'm going to go for this particular ship or not. It is a ship that you can buy in-game, so now I guess I don't have a real reason to hold back. Just wait until I can buy it in-game. But still, this is a very, very good vessel. It has a different approach to fighting other than its lighter wing counterpart, the Gladius. This vessel has 4 size 3 Panther repeaters with 4 size 3 missiles, 2 Arrestor 3s, 2 Thunderbolt 3s. In terms of its strength as well, although she's like a medium-ish durability fighter, she's not really designed to sort of slug it out. She's more of a hit and run. So when going into combat with this particular vessel, you do need to keep your eyes peeled in terms of how she handles and how you have to be careful that you're not going to be overcommitting to something before you go boom boom, which is understandable. As mentioned before, I am in love with the design of this particular thing. I do like it a lot. I find this particular design a lot sleeker, a lot sexier. But the problem I have is I have the Mark II Hornet F7A. So, yeah, it's kind of hard to say bye-bye to that to say hello to the Sabre, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see. But I am really liking the Hornet Mark II. Seriously, fucking good ship. Anyway, going on into... Save that for Anvil Day. Going on into the other vessel, we have its... I'm going to just say a lacking counterpart, the Sabre Comet. This particular variant is more designed for stealth and electronic warfare / non-lethally approach. So as you can see, the vessel has replaced its CF Panther size 3s for 2 size 3 Omniskis and 2 size 3 scatterguns. So I'm going to say this because, and I'm going to say fight me on this, a shotgun in space is useless. Fight me. Anyway, so really the main benefit of this particular ship is the camo skin. The vanilla camo skin for this vessel is really, really nice. I like the red tinting of the cockpit, but apparently, that's really what you get. Pretty much all you're going to be getting this ship for is the cockpit and the base vanilla skin, which to a degree may not serve you in a higher respect because, well, you're only buying it for that, really. And there are other skins available to you in the verse. So yeah, it's not the greatest when it comes to its armament as well as its purpose in life, but well. Anyway, without further ado, we're going to take this to my personal hangar to have a look at this baby. And we're going to be having a lot more in-depth look at this girl, which is, of course, the Reclaimer. And I love it, but I hate it. Let's find out why. So, we are in my personal hangar on Microtech, and we are looking at the... I'm going to go for like a full view on the Reclaimer, because this thing is really, really good, but it's also really, really frustrating because of its design mechanics, and I honestly hope that in the near future we're going to see either a bit of a major redesign of this ship, like a Mark II preferably, or we could see something that has... Okay, we either need to see a Mark II or a complete redesign of this vessel from the ground up. While maybe retaining its original shape, there's a lot of this thing that I personally just find extremely frustrating to utilize, and if any of you guys have used this thing in the past, you may or may agree/disagree with me. I encourage people to talk about this thing because it's my biggest forebears. So what is this thing? Well, as mentioned, this is the Reclaimer. This is a vessel that I love and I hate at the same time. It is the largest salvaging ship in flyable condition in Star Citizen. Its main forms of salvaging are the two laser beams to the front here and here, which are independently operated. You also have the Claw, which used to be the Munches, but then they changed it when they realized they couldn't do the munching mechanics as they previously had hoped to, that CIG had previously hoped to do. Hopefully in the future we'll have a ship that can do the Om Nom Nom, but for the time being, what this thing does is when you go to utilize it, this Claw pushes out, opens out, and it basically zaps the ship into... Well, it causes a massive series of vibration, which then disassembles the ship, and then it disintegrates the ship and puts it into its cargo hold, which is pretty nice. So, in order to get into this incredibly vast and massive ship, you have two options. Well, technically three if you're in space. The first option, which is what we're going to use to get into this ship, is in the... Here you go. Is in the frontal half of this ship. Now, this is one of the things that I say really goes in the favor of this ship, in that you have an elevator that gets you up to the top floor. The downside, it only has enough room for one person, which really sucks. I'm hoping that if they do a redesign in the future, we might be able to get an elevator that works alongside, say, the Hercules or some other ships, and I've just fallen off. God damn it. Okay. Yeah, that's the other thing. It doesn't always work. We're going to go from the back. I was going to try and go through the front, but we're just going to go with a reliable back-end option. Yeah, the thing about this ship, and I'm going to say is an overriding sort of issue with it, is it's old. It's very old style design template. It has an old mindset towards things. It doesn't have buttons to illustrate. It doesn't have many buttons to showcase. You know, like how most vessels nowadays have an interactable button that allows you to open up the hangar bays, or an interactable thing to open up the ladder or something like that. This ship doesn't have that. So the main way that you'll be getting into this ship is through this way, the cargo ramp, which previously the old interaction system actually allowed you to do it quite easily. This one you have to go into the different varying degrees. So you want to go into the habitation deck. We'll go from the top to the bottom for this one. So yeah, these videos are lengthy, unfortunately. I feel that this one's going to be easily over an hour. Could it possibly be an hour and a half? Don't know. Hopefully not. But still, we're going to go into the habitation deck for this one. So going into this particular ship, you have the technically second-ish third option, which is the airlocks on the side to enter into the ship. So if you're entering the ship in 0G, you will go into here, goes into here, and then finally you have the third door, which is here as well. So you do have the ability to access the ship from the side as well as from the top, but we'll show that in a minute. In here we have the engine deck, which when engineering becomes a thing in Star Citizen, this thing is going to be quite a cool reason to come down here, because you'll get access to all of the fancy pants stuff. And I've fallen through the ship again, god damn it! Oh my god. Back again. We'll try the other side this time. Hopefully I'll have the same reaction as before, or not. We are not able to get into the engineering deck. Effectively, this is just... I'm going to just try and fall in. There we go. And good, we're in. So, this is the engineering deck. And as you can see, we've got some really cool interiors. Like, the design philosophy in this particular thing, because this is technically an engineering station, but the design philosophy for this ship at the time was a lot more about what the game could do, like to show the pizzazz of a larger vessel, rather than making it a practical ship to interact with. So if you're wanting to have cinematic shots with really cool looking visuals, then yeah, this thing looks absolutely incredible. It has atmospheric lighting, and if you've seen, and depending on, you know, how old you are, you may understand the theme that this ship was aiming for. I never knew this bit was back here. Completely fucking pointless. But still, if you're a bit of a veteran of certain sci-fi films, you'll no doubt know the kind of film that this ship was aiming to replicate. It's grimy but still sort of chunky aesthetics, with its habitation sections as well, with the little ladder and everything, and it's sort of it's rusted kind of. It's a used. It's not as it's a used vibe. It's not completely gone, but it's still kind of rustic, and it's not really. It's not quite out of it yet, but it's, it probably could do with a bit of a refit. Kind of like the whole fucking ship in particular. You've got your captain's quarters over here with a very nice, pleasant view outside. You've got some padding on the seats and his own particular bed with his own bloody toilet and everything. It's kind of ridiculous, really, how much stuff he's got. But hey-ho, he's the captain. He gets the shiny tools. And then, of course, if you haven't guessed what theme this ship is aiming for beforehand, you will do now. This is the crew's food quarters, and yeah, the lighting here is a bit foggy, but if you haven't already guessed, yes, this ship is aiming to be the Nostromo from Alien, right down to the condiments onto the table and everything. It's kind of ridiculous, really. But yeah, this ship's design philosophy is meant to be lived in. Also, random side note, this is an additional docking collar that you can open up and get yourself into if you want to get into the ship from space. So that's an additional option for you. I list it only as a third option because airlocks are I kind of treat airlocks as a kind of in one kind of go, if that makes any sense. So this is, I'm trying to remember what this is. I think this is just a data access point with no functionality. And if we go to the other side, I think we get access to escape pods. There we go. So this is where if the shit hits the fan, you have an old style button that allows you to escape from the ship should the shit hit the fan. And in this room we have access to the drone, which I think it's a singular drone that you'll be able to hop into as the drone commander, entering into this realm. Again, very cinematic. So you see, you've got a drone operator seat, and you'll be able to use the singular drone to find and utilize salvage in areas that previously were not available. So you've got in here access to one of the main turrets, or one of the only manned turrets in the vessel, which houses I want to say size 5s? Yeah, a couple of size 5 Goldrian repeaters. So that's a pretty impressive weapon loadout, but when you realize that that's the only size 5s you've got, and everything else is all about the size 2s and whatnots, it's not the greatest of weapon armament. I mean, then again, this ship is not designed for heavy weapon ordnance. It's designed as a salvaging ship. Here is, again, very cinematic gravity generation vessel engine. I'm just going to fall down here. So, taking a bit of damage, actually. So, but that's why we have a medipen, or a medigun, for just these emergencies. So, you've got ladder access, which I am forever getting stuck on, but it's, again, that's more to do with desync, nothing to do with the ship. But you have ladder access, which is good. You also have a lift access from the top to the main deck as well. And then you've got this, again, really cinematic, old-style design template of your entire ship's salvaging components, mushing up all of the stuff that's inside the template, inside the ship, which I think if you can see from here, this is where all of the stuff kind of goes into and then is transferred into your depot, and up there is the internal cargo systems for that, but we'll show that in a little bit. Anyway, this particular plateau, or this particular thing, is the various pods, or various computer pods, that allows you to access the remote turrets. So this panel and this panel are for the remote turrets on each of the points on the ship, which house a total of 13 size 3 Panther repeaters, laser turrets. So pretty useful, and of course you've got the scanning tools deck on here. Going on to the main bridge, you will be introduced to the 2 salvage mining lasers that each are operated separately on each particular side, which actually goes quite far back. Finally, you're into the bridge proper with the pilot on the left and the claw operator on the right. I'll quickly clock in and hop into the claw operator's side panels. So this one is, again, old style, because in order to activate the thing, you have to... Where is it? I think there's a button that you can press to activate the main power, unless you just hit the power button on the side. No, yeah, you have to find a button on the bloody side of it, which is absolutely annoying as hell. There's the exit seat part, or do I have to switch the entire ship on? I think you... Oh, there we go. Right, yeah, you have to very carefully hit the power on button on here, and then if you press the... Ah, okay, so you have to take off and fly. But basically, the operator extends the claw out, and as the claw is out and doing its particular thing, you can choose to either disintegrate, or sorry, to fracture the ship, or you can disintegrate the ship, resulting in you obtaining the stuff for the depot, which, depending on what vessel you can utilize, is you can basically fracture every ship in the game, as it's technically considered the largest fracturing vessel, or fracturing salvaging kit in the game as well. So there you go. That's that particular element. The new MFD modifiers, I will not lie, do look really good for this ship. I very much appreciate the latest MFD changes to that. If we hop over to this side, I think this is the first time I've gone in this ship since they've updated the MFDs, which is cool. So if we hit the MFD buttons here, yeah, this looks a lot better than it did beforehand. Power management systems are all good as well. So yeah, no, I very much appreciate the updates to the MFD things. And also now we have the option to see the shields and everything else. No, I like this. I like this a lot. This is a relatively new feature. Well, the MFDs are the new feature for that one. But the cockpit display is the same as it was before. So, no, I like this. In terms of visuals, flying around, this thing is all right. Like, it's not great. You aren't really going to be doing a lot of, like, maneuvering in that respect. The only thing you'll be doing is either flying above or, to be fair, you really want to be doing this in 0G. You can salvage on a planet, but it is such a bitch to do because this fucker is heavy. Like, it's a big fuck-off ship. You've got the VTOL thrusters in your landing. You've got the VTOL thrusters in your vessel. In fact, you know what? I'm going to try something. I'm going to turn the engines off. So, I'm going to turn this thing off. And I'm going to check to see if we can do this with... Yeah, so you can see, you've got these big, massive engines. And if we press the K button, you can turn them into VTOL, which is pretty cool. So I'm now going to just quickly hop over to the other side so I can activate that little thing. And then hopefully we should be able to interact and get the claw operator seats out for that one. The primary thing you want to do with the claw, though, is you only want to activate this thing once you've... once you've... There we go. There we go. So this thing extends outwards, and it opens. And whatever ship is in front of you, you can either choose to fracture it, or you can choose to disintegrate it, and it gives you a yield as to how this particular thing works. So, overall... There we go. So, we'll go to land this thing now. So, yeah, that's the overall... There we go. Perfect. hop over to here. Get the landing gear back out now. So, rest her in, engines off, and schmoof. Like, in terms of aesthetics, this ship is gorgeous, and it really oozes character, and it basically really, it represents the industrialization in terms of some of your ship's counterparts. So what you'd be doing in here is you'd be entering the salvage operator seat here, and a bit like a remote control turret, you go into the lower sections here. There's a button that you turn off the power on. There you go. So power goes on, and then you would find the remote control switch, which is down here, and you would engage the trawler salvager module, and then, you know, begin to blase into it as well. So each of these particular operator seats operates its own salvaging laser on each side. Really useful, and obviously, depending on the ship you're salvaging, it combs over a massive area, which is very, very nice. So this is the entrance to this is the elevator that I mentioned from before, which again doesn't always work. It does work sometimes in a 0G, and sometimes it does work in sometimes it works in 0G, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it works in Atmo, and sometimes it doesn't. It really depends on the luck of the dice. But it does give you, if it does work, it means getting into your ship without having to faff around getting the elevator from the back, which is fair enough. So we'll now use the elevator to get to the back of this ship. And one of the things I wanted to highlight from this entire thing is that while I'm shitting on this ship a lot, I do like this ship, and I feel like this really just needs an overhaul to become more modern in terms of streamlining some of the entranceways, making the ship a lot more functional in terms of older model templates that get in the way of things, and finally just give this ship a good once-over to make it more easy to utilize, easier to manage, give the player more options when it comes to how they want to do their business with the ship, rather than, like with, for example, the Vulture, you have a much easier time getting the salvage out of the ship, putting it into your cargo bay, being able to maneuver around. Like, the difference in terms of quality of life is astounding. This ship is all form over function, and you can tell it does work. You can use it for certain things, but it has also some of the glaring weaknesses, and we're about to show those glaring weaknesses right now. So here is the main workbench / area for you. This is where you will be spending a large portion of your time getting the cargo out. Now, the way that the cargo bay works is you've got 4 bays connected here, which you can attach cargo into these cargo grids and be able to, get a pretty reasonably large amount of cargo inside these bays. But it is limited. It is more limited than you may realize, because you can only get about 2 or 3 16 SCU type boxes in there, and you can only stack them about maybe 1 or 2 high before you start having problems with the fucking railings on here. Because for some unknown reason, 2 reasons. First, why the fuck would you have these chains become immobile? Why would you have an observation platform if you're trying to do a cargo bay interior? And why in the name of the Golden Throne would you then have why would you have a second floor that, in order to get out of, if you should fall into, you have to use the elevator in the back to get there? Seriously, it is fucking useless. Or it is much more difficult to use than necessary. So that elevator that would take us up to the second floor, this is the observation platform, which serves no real purpose, with the exception of maybe the railing systems, where if you filled the interior up to the absolute maximum, you can use the railings as well as the stairs on the railings to help guide in the 16 SCU boxes that are going to be ever flowing out of these things. Speaking of which, you get access to these boxes via the depot, I don't know what you want to call these things, depot release machines, crunchers, smunchers, whatever you want to call it. The salvage station, I think I'll call it, just because, yeah, the internal salvage, I think I'm going to call it the salvage station. So the salvage station, which allows you to push out either your C mats or your RCM mats, you're going to be able to basically pour these things out, plonk them into different locations, and then basically store them so that when you go to transfer the vessels over, or transfer the cargo over, you will be able to do that. Now, here's another fun fucking thing, which, since 324 fully introduced, you now have to, which is now an absolute pain in the ass, which is, in order to get the cargo out of the ship, if you don't want to pay the fee for having the cargo be unloaded from your ship, you have two options. The first is to try and get the cargo out of this really tiny elevator, and then you got to try and somehow plonk these things in said elevator to get them out of your ship. That is something you have to do, and that is an absolute pain in the ass. The other thing is, and I didn't do it on purpose because I didn't want to have to potentially fall out of the ship again, is this little bay here. So I think over here you can actually... No, that's for the 3rd floor, yeah. So this thing is actually a door that you can open up, and it kind of extends outwards to the rear of the ship. And I don't quite know its purpose in life, except for frustration, because how it works is it basically goes down a bit, and you can somewhat, if you spend a good few minutes trying to force it out, and someone else has to stand outside trying to help force the damn thing out as well, you can kind of wedge the size 16 boxes out and plonking it, then for them to fall out of the back of the ship, for you to put them all into the cargo bay in the warehouse elevator to the side. This is also, by the way, an area for storage, but the cargo grids don't work, which means you have to manually set them up on each particular side of the bay, making life absolutely nightmare fuel for anyone who wants to try and get the most out of their vessel. Like, the thing with this ship, and I'm shitting on this a lot, but it's because I want this ship to work. I want this thing to work so much, but it does everything in its power to make any kind of significant operation of salvage a laborious affair, to say the least. You are constantly fighting this ship to do what you want to do with it. And it is so irritating, because all you really need to do is go through this thing. I mean, to be fair, I would personally say that this ship needs a complete overhaul. You take everything of the internals out and you replace it with something that makes it far more streamlined and far easier to work with, that doesn't involve whatever this is. Like, whatever this is, this design philosophy is old. It's outdated. It doesn't function properly. You have to find alternative means and workarounds to be able to do what you want with this thing, rather than use the ship as its intended purpose is, because its intended purpose is about 10 years out of date. So this is finally the cargo bay / room that the... Wait, what the fuck? Okay. STU. Which is no, yeah. So the cargo bay basically has a limited amount of cargo space, and again, it isn't always 100% functional in that realm. This vessel is just in a dire need for it's just in a dire need for an overhaul. 100% in a dire need for overhaul. And one could argue that I personally would just go with a Mark II and kind of leave this behind. I mean, don't get me wrong, I want this to succeed, as mentioned before, but I also am extremely frustrated with this particular ship, because it just is a never-ending fucking nightmare when it comes to doing any kind of significant operations. Now, you can stack all of the stuff internally, and if you don't mind losing a bit of your income to manually having to load and unload or do whatever, then that's fine. But the other issue is that sometimes when you're inside the cargo bay, like when I've tried to sell the internal cargo after making one significant run, the ships, the TDD didn't detect the cargo that wasn't in its cargo grid, which meant that it couldn't sell everything in one go. So if you're going to use this ship, the best bet is to have one or two people with you, which you kind of need to anyway in order to use the ships to the maximum, the multi-crew gameplay being forced in this helm, but you need someone out here with a tractor beam basically to stand here. That's the door, by the way, that spits out the stuff, and I can only assume there's some kind of railing process or some kind of thing that was intended to be utilized here, but now obviously doesn't. But what you do is one particular dude with a tractor beam, would come out here with his with the gravity gun, catches all the boxes that you're shitting out the back of this thing for, and then putting it into the internal cargo bay. That is an extremely slow and laborious process. Maybe now with the Atlas it's not so difficult, but good fucking luck trying to get that thing. And also you can't put the Atlas in the ship. A friend of mine and I tried. Clips into the old style design of the ship too much. You're going to have to either find some means, like another Atlas, to put this thing on its side, and then hopefully, or pick it up inside the ship's cargo bay, and then maybe rotate it, move it, and rotate it back again. But all in all, this ship, bless it, it looks cool. It's cinematically a gorgeous vessel with so much aesthetics and visuals that just make the eye bulge in excitement. But when you try and use this thing, it is a fucking cunt to be able to get it to work, to get it to the level that you want it to work with. Takes forever for you to get from your hangar bay, from the cargo bay to the entranceway. The cargo system in the back of the ship is an absolute joke, and it takes forever for you to do anything. Extracting the cargo from your ship is another fucking nightmare, because you can add on at least another 40-50 minutes to whatever journey or mission you've got just through taking the cargo out. And then finally, you then have the issue that sometimes the ship just yeets you out when you're trying to access certain points. It is an old ship design that very much needs to be retired or renovated or overhauled to the point of ridiculousness because of all the things that the ship design philosophy that CIG has undergone and changed since the time of this original ship's launch. Again, I would personally favor a complete gutting of everything inside that ship and designing it from the ground up once again to keep it streamlined, easy to access, and for the cargo bay to just be one giant continuous cargo bay that has doors that can open and close. Again, I kind of feel like the only real solution to this would be to make a Mark II Reclaimer and sort of go, hey look, anyone who owns the Reclaimer in-game or IRL, can have the Mark II for free. And the Mark I, which is an absolute pain in the arse to utilize, you can get with in-game currency, but you're not going to be getting it for real money because this thing is not worth the real money that it's available for. It is an old designed ship. It needs renovating, it needs remodeling, and it certainly needs retooling. Oh, that's a big rant over. And almost half an hour of the video. Oh, this is going to be a long one. As we make our way into the first of the big halls, we are presented with kind of a mute, we're a little bit quieter area here, but still pretty impressive considering the load we've got. And also the significance of the vessel to the rear of the station. I think someone put the light on with this bloody thing. Yeah, that someone did. GG. So this... Before we'll go into the big implications of the vessel to the right, let's talk about one of the ships that is growing in terms of my desire to have it, which is the Eclipse. The Eclipse is a dedicated stealth fighter platform which is designed on obviously the B-2 or the F-117 Nighthawk fighters, and it is an absolute beauty. I have seen it and shot at it as well as flown it on a few occasions, and I can definitely say I do like it. And I am kind of... I kind of and ah as to whether or not I really want to go for this vessel again, because it looks so cool, and it's got the sleek sides to it and everything, and it's wonderful. I probably wouldn't be able to do it justice in its application, but still, it's really, really cool. Oh, God. Anyway, so in terms of its purpose, it really is only suitable for one purpose only, which if we hop into the vessel's main sort of cockpit array, and I somehow clamber into the cockpit and not... There we go. So with this particular vessel, you are pretty much strapped in, and although the showcasing variant doesn't, unfortunately, it's sadly, the showcasings, since the new MFDs have gone into effect, you can't really see these particular things, which is understandable, considering that, you know, you get the show remodel and it kind of incentivizes you to fly it now. But no, since they've introduced these things, it does look absolutely incredible. But one of the main reasons why you want to get one of these things is if I do this... Is the power on? Oh yeah, I can zoom in. That's right. I have the button to turn the... Is it a manual thing? We have to turn the power manually on. Oh, don't tell me that we have... Oh, is it really that much limited functionality now? Okay. That's a bit of a shock. Right, well, looking underneath, as you can tell by the apparent bomb bay doors, this vessel has 3 size 9 torpedoes. To be quote, the Argos 9 size torpedoes, or size 9 torpedoes. Now, you only have 3 of these buggers, which means you don't have a lot of shots to make. But if you are a competent pilot and you have the right kind of mindset towards the hit-and-run attacks that this vessel is perfectly designed for, you'll be able to sneak up to your opponents and give them the right royal shafting before making a break for it, because if anyone spots you beforehand, the only defense you've got is a couple of size 2 Panther repeaters with the gimbal mounts on. Now, I'll admit... Oh no, here we go. Has it crashed? No, we're good. I'll admit... a good pilot can potentially do quite a lot of wonders, but this thing is not designed for dogfighting. If anything, it's very much against the design for dogfighting. So, do be careful. It's very, very dangerous to be caught out in the open. But, speaking about... Well, going back to what I was saying about monumental vessels, this thing, this ship, which... I feel is going to kind of be ignored, or at least for the time being, its implications of its introduction is now, well, is somewhat limited. This is the Retaliator, and originally this vessel was designed purely as a bomber variant, or at least in the previous editions of the game, it was a bomber-only variant. But now, it is the first vessel to receive modular capabilities in Star Citizen. Now, of course, there are other vessels that are in concept or whatever, but this is the ship that you can, at this moment, have multiple modular features for. And there's actually quite a lot of modular features that you can choose when selecting the tally. You have, to be fair, you have up to 4, which is pretty impressive. The first module, which is what I believe this particular version that we're seeing in IAE is the cargo variant. It's not a huge amount of cargo, up to about 74 SCUs, which is what we're seeing here. But we also then have a personnel module, which allows players to, if you're flying around in the ship doing whatever, doing long-range missions or wanting to have a minor outpost to work from, you do have the ability for the tally to give you that option, which is kind of nice to say the least. So you have a personnel living option, and there's a dropship option, so if you're wanting to drop troops into a combat zone, you can do so. Unfortunately, the tally is still a little bit short when it comes to its corridors. It has received a major improvement over the last couple of years, which I do like as well in terms of its sizing. And it also feels much more modern a vessel as well, which is nice. Finally, it does have the ability for you to have the original module, which is of course all to do with the torpedoes, which in that case it has about 6 size 9 torpedoes. It's rather lovely, isn't it? Yeah, it's lovely. Lovely jubbly. And it has a very impressive amount of weaponry and equipment. Overall, I really do like this vessel. Well, I like this vessel. I'm indifferent to this vessel at the moment, but since they've improved and made all of the necessary changes, my impression of this ship has greatly improved. While I don't personally feel like there's a huge amount of use I personally would see from it, I am loving the fact that there are options now for budding players out there, and eventually what we may see is a introduction to... Oh god, I remember the holes in this ship. The amount of times you could be like, oh wow, look at this, wah, thud, and you fall out the ship. But no, the options that the players have in terms of getting through the ship, you've got the docking collar to the side now, which is a far more intelligent option in my opinion. But you also have a whole host of different abilities, which when engineering becomes a factor into Star Citizen, that's going to be pretty freaking huge. And I believe, to be fair, I'm actually kind of curious, how do you get the cargo to come out unless you... Because it says it's a cargo module. So does this mean that this thing is, like, filled up, or does it go down? I'm not too sure, because how do you load the physicalized cargo? Unless you have an engineering station, which will then get you to work. Oh, yeah, they do. So the platform's lower to the ground for easy loading and unloading, which makes sense. I don't know how you can do it with this one. I've yet to see a cargo variant of this in action, but it's an option. I mean, to be fair, you could probably have the Tally be one of those vessels. Hello. You could have a Tally that is one of those more secure or like a small but more defendable cargo vessel, because she does have quite a decent array of protection, 2 turrets on the top, 2 turrets on the bottom, as well as a variety. No weapons for the pilot, sadly, but if you're wanting to get the hell out of Dodge, you would need something along those lines. But still, depending on your particular preference, this kind of ship could be quite an important one in the future in regards to... Oh, hello. I can see a potential for a thumbnail there, but who knows? Might go back to this bit. But still, I like the Tally out. I feel the Tally has a lot more implications for Star Citizen, and hopefully, in the future, it will be applied. Its applications will be applied to great effect amongst the player base. As we enter into the next room, we are greeted with the Chads of Aegis. That is right, the Vanguard series of ships, and quite a few of them as well. In fact, this all of them. And I'm not going to lie, I do like them. I very much did. This was one of the ships that a certain friend of mine decided to show off, and it ended up setting me down the road to damnation, which is, of course, the Vanguard Warden. We'll start with the Warden first, and then we'll work our way around for these things. Again, I'm not going to go crazy into these, because I've already talked about them a lot, and they are more military-esque ships, which I believe Invictus Launch Week is better suited for. So, the Vanguard Warden is, we'll call this sort of a baseline of their variant of ship. They've changed the weapon, though, which is intriguing. Let's have a look, see. What weapons have they gone with now? I'm kind of looking at this Vari Puck on the thing. Okay, so the Vanguard Warden, they used to have a different weapon for this, but the Vanguard Warden series of ships is a dedicated, well, it's a heavy fighter platform which is more suited for long-range reconnaissance. It has a size 5 Deadbolt 5 cannon at the front. It used to have a Revenant Gatling. Obviously, you can adjust and change this. It has the Vari Puck system, so you can still utilize the ability to change these things. And as mentioned, this thing used to have the Gatling gun at the front, but then, for some unknown reason, they've decided to change it to the Deadbolt 5, which is intriguing, to say the least. I'm kind of curious as to why they would do that, but hey-ho. Also, I love the detailing on that, jeez. Anyway, they also have 4 size 2 MVSA cannons, one of the better versions of the laser cannons that are fixed into the front of the vessel. So you have an additional level of firepower involved with that, which is quite nice. In terms of missiles, you have quite a large array of missiles, to be fair. We have a little look-see to here. There we go, missile rack. So, on the missiles, you have 4 size 3s, which are the Arrester 3s, and then we have 4 size 2s, and then another 4 size 2s. So 4 size 2 Dominator 2s, and 4 size 2 Ignite 2 missiles as well. So the ship is designed to is to make sure that people who fuck around find out. And going on into the interior, the only thing I don't like about this particular ship is the interior of it. As you can see, we've got an engineering station, one of the more older style engineering stations, but we also have toiletries access with a non-functioning mirror, I am sorry to say. But you have the weapon rack, you've got the 2 bunks on the side, manned turret on the top having size 3 Panther repeaters. Oh no, sorry, size 2 Panther repeaters with a sawbucks for some reason. Oh, so not Panther repeaters now. They've changed a lot with this ship. Yeah, now it's 2 sawbuck repeaters, but you want to change those to Panther or Badger repeaters because why wouldn't you? Anyway, so the ship itself is a pretty impressive array of that. It's a pretty impressive fighter, and I do very much like it. I've owned one for a long time, and I kind of stopped owning it because of 2 reasons. One, I found myself using nothing but the Vanguard Warden, and for me, I kind of like having that variety, that option to work with those sort of things, because it feels good. It feels right to sort of have it like that, which makes, sense in my book. And also, the other reason is because, well, as time goes by, my mindset has lent less in towards combat and more in towards logistical, mining, salvaging, that kind of thing. And I kind of feel as I'm getting a bit older in life, I feel like less about combat and more about organization and all that. So, blame Foxhole. Anyway, moving to the other vessels, we are greeted with the beauty, and they've equipped it with the same thing. Intriguing. So we're introduced to the Vanguard Harbinger, whichever one. I'm going to call this the Hellbringer because my brain, whenever I try and say the word Harbinger, it just doesn't work right. So I'm going to call it the Hellbringer, and it's also floating, so we know it's being possessed by a demon. But we're going to call this the Hellbringer just because my brain has an easier time saying it. So the Hellbringer is a very much more heavily combat-orientated semi-bomber style fighter. It has the same size 5 deadbolt, but unlike the Warden Vanguard, you instead have the CVSA cannons on the top, which is very intriguing. These are all ballistic based, so good luck trying to be economical with your weapon systems. And on the top as well, instead of a dedicated, if memory serves correctly, yes, there it is. Instead of weapons and guns and whatever, you've instead got rocket pods on the turret for the Hellbringer, which is a first. I don't think we've got rocket pods. Very, very few ships in Star Citizen have rocket pods, which is kind of frustrating because I want rocket pods in ships. I would love rocket pods in this game. It would be brilliant. But the other thing which this vehicle has, unlike the Vanguard Warden, is it has 3 size 5 torpedoes. A very impressive array of weaponry designed to destroy and do quite a lot of damage. Overall, I would say this vessel is absolutely incredible, and this also has the same array of missiles as well, size 3s on there and on here, as well as, let's have a look-see. Yeah, the same. Oh, this one has 4 size 2 Dominators and 4 size 2 Ignite 2s. So the same around, similar size, similar size of missiles, but slightly different variations for them. So fair enough. Moving on to the not so combat variant, but still a pretty good one. You've got the Vanguard Hoplite, or Hoplite as other people call it, but I call it by its proper pronunciation, which is Hoplite. So the Hoplite is a troop transporting variant, which has, if I'm not mistaken, the Sentinel has the same one of those, which is the ATVS repeaters on the top with another deadbolt at the bottom. And going through to our missile complement. Actually, not that. It doesn't. Okay, on this particular occasion, this vessel is the exception to the rule. It doesn't have any size 3 missiles. But this vessel is not really dedicated for combat, as we're going to go see. Once again, demonic possession is allowing us to have these things floating. I think someone made a bit of a mishap when they plonked these things down. No, so this particular vessel is a dedicated troop transport, which allows you to transport up to 6 combat individuals, plus the pilot and the turret gunner. So 8 men in total, and as you can see, it's quite pretty. It's not a bad ship for that. I personally feel that the Vanguard Hoplite is not what I would personally use for a troop transport or even a spec ops team transport. I feel that there are better ships out there for this, but what I like about it is the fact that we have a choice. We have a variety, which I believe is key fundamental amongst all, which is very, very important. And I personally would say it's nice that we have these things, because you need variety to be able to find the right kind of stuff. Anyway, as we make our way across to the last vessel in the grouping, which I'm not going to lie, I will say this is becoming my favorite version of the ship, and I think I would probably pursue getting it in in-game form, which is the Vanguard Sentinel. This is the advocacy's version of the Vanguard, designed, yep, same frontal things as well, pretty good. So yeah, this particular vessel doesn't have a ballistic at the front, but instead an attrition size 5 repeater, which is nice, and it also has the ATVS on the front as well, which is pretty cool. Really nice looking skin, absolutely lovely, and once again 4 size 3s and 8 size 2 missiles, which is nice. But the big thing about this vessel is that it's designed for civilian purposes as well as electronic warfare, and has the best interior ever in a Vanguard series. I fucking love this interior. It is so sexy. I love the display, I love the dynamicness of it, I love the terminal, I love the lighting, it looks so good. Oh, it's so nice. I love it. 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 I love the toilet. No. No, of all the variants in the Vanguard series, this has to be my personal favorite. Just because of the amount of detail, but also the subtle lighting. I am a sucker for lighting like this. So if you gave me a ship and you had this kind of interior with this kind of lighting and with the details and everything, yeah, I'm in. I'm very much in for this one. So aside of the absolute drop dead sexy gorgeous interior, what is so special about this ship? Well, this ship also has a unique weapon to it. In fact, it has a unique weapon in the form of an EMP. Yes, you can zap people and shut down their vessels, preventing them from being able to escape. As mentioned, this is a ship of the advocacy. They are designed to try and capture prisoners, not murder them like they used to in the Mesa days. So this vessel is designed primarily to act as a law enforcer and a peacekeeper. And I'll be honest with you, if I was a ne'er-do-well trying to do my plying trade and saw that this thing was on my scope, I very much would be more inclined to surrender, considering what will happen if I don't do that. But no, so the Vanguard series of ships, I love them. I think they're really useful. I'm not as well. I love the heaviness of them. I said I completely love the. I really love the Vanguard interiors for the Sentinel. I used to be a huge diehard fan for the Warden, but as time has gone by, my tastes in ships have slightly changed, and as such, I'm less in favor of just pure combat stuff, and now more in favor of utilitarian and transportation means in that realm. Christ, we're going to be taking forever when Argo Day comes. Oh boy. As we enter into the next room, we are presented with one of the more famous vessels, in fact, the most famous Aegis vessel in the game, and arguably one of the more famous vessels in Star Citizen, the Gladius, followed quickly by its variant, as well as the Hammerhead. Now, we'll go into the Hammerhead first of all, because I think, to be brutally fair, we won't go too crazy into it. Again, something more for military elements, but I am going to talk a bit about the Hammerhead because it is pretty cool. The Hammerhead is a subcapital gunboat. It is, and I think, to be fair, it's original. I used to say that this ship was the best way to introduce a few friends into playing multi-role ships, and I think that it still could be, but I think that time for it is slightly passing, which is a bit of a shame. But this vessel has 6 quad 4. Is it size 5s or size 4s? I want to say size 4, but I could be wrong. Let's have a look-see going on to the Star Citizen tools. Weapons, is it size 5s or size 4s? It is... No, I was right. It was size 4s. So we have quad size 4 Rhino repeaters, which, for anyone who's mad and wants to spend an absolute bloody fortune rearming them constantly, you could convert these to the size 4 bearing AD4Bs. If you're mad. But still, this thing has up to 24 in total, but 6 turrets, 4 on the sides, 2 on each side, 1 above, 1 below. An absolute treasure trove of fun if you're going to go into a massive slugfest. And of course, if you've seen the CitizenCon trailer for Squadron 42, you know these things are quite active and are very much are still being utilized by the UEE Navy to absolutely decimate opponents in the decimate forces of the Vanduul, as well as any other threats to UEE sovereignty. This vessel is an absolute blast, and I do like this. I mean, there's a lot of ships in Star Citizen that I do like. Wouldn't really own this particular vessel, but I do like it. It's a good ship to introduce your friends to Star Citizen 2. There are better ships now, I feel. As time goes by, we are now reaching that stage where we're not so much about, oh yeah, this ship is amazing for multi-crew. It's like, no, I think the time has come to say, no, we're good. There, we've got a nice little cargo bay on the back side there, so you can probably drive a vehicle into it. So if you want to use limited amount of, like, if you want to use your gunboat to come into it, that's fine. But this vessel, I would say, rose to prominence during the first ever Jumptown event. Well, to be fair, it wasn't really an event. It was legit. Like, the first ever Jumptown was a real player conflict that just erupted due to a station producing a large amount of drugs. And around the time that Jumptown first started, this ship had just come out. I want to say it's 2017, 2016. That's when this vessel came out, and it dominated the area. It would fly above the zone, shooting down anything that would go near it. And this was before they changed the ballistics as well. So you had a larger variety of ballistic weapons with a fuck ton of ammo on side. It was deadly and very much deserved its reputation for being an effective weapon. And I think it will still retain its deadliness even when going into Pyro with the introduction of such things as the Polaris and the Idris and other ships as they come and go. But this thing is still well worth it's still a very big threat if you encounter it, especially if you're running in a small crew. Now, talking about big threats or reputation or doing amazing things, we can't talk about Star Citizen fighters without mentioning the Gladius. This is the pinnacle of Star Citizen fighter support. It is the ship that you get to fly in Squadron 42. It is the ship that a lot of players will understand, or not even non-players will know what this ship is. This vessel has the same level of reputation for non-Star Citizen fans as the Cutlass Black does for anyone who's done that one. And also, this is the vessel that receives a lot of the new refinements and gameplay mechanics, and I can already see that they've done a bit of work on the model. It looks absolutely gorgeous. We can see the definitions now a lot more clearly. We've got some lights now. We've got some extra details. We've got additional mechanics involved with it. So, for example, you can actually access the storage components on the side. If we open here, you've now got components access as well, which is really, really cool. You have this, I think it's on this side that you get the ability to access the weapon access. There we go. So you can, if you ever drop into the field and you need to access your guns and stuff, there you go. So I'm fairly certain I'll be using that in Squadron 42 when it comes out. And this vessel is absolutely gorgeous. A lot of pilots swear by this vessel, and I don't blame them. It's an incredibly good fighter. Not my particular cup of tea, but still a really good fighter. It's got 2 size 3 Arrestor 3 missiles on the inner pylon, and 4 size 2 Ignite 2 missiles on the side. In terms of weapons, it has a size 3 Gatling Mantis repeater, and a couple of 2 size 3 Panther repeaters on the wings as well. So in terms of firepower, this vessel is extremely potent in terms of its deadliness. However, don't forget, it's also quite a light fighter. It's very fast, it's very agile, it cannot tank any real sense of damage. Your determination for this vessel is to always be about darting, shooting, and moving, not standing still and expecting to be shot in return, because that will result in you having an early grave. So the Gladius Valiant is is basically an alternate version of the same thing. It's different skin, different weapons on the front. You've got a Panther repeater on the front here, and you look to have a couple of omniskis on the side. I am going to quickly Google what the Gladius Valiant does in comparison. So we've got 2 size 3 Viper missiles, 8 size 1 Pioneer missiles on the side there. We have the Panther repeater and 2 Omniski 2s on that one. Not entirely sure. Oh, it's just a special edition. Okay. So, yeah, literally, it's a skin special edition of the Gladius with a different weapon complement. Omniskis instead of Panther repeaters, and a Panther repeater at the front instead of the Mantis G Gatling repeater. So, overall, it's a pretty impressive looking ship, and the Gladius Valiant variant is just a snazzier version of that with a slightly better base vanilla skin, but that's about it. The Gladius series is a ship that I don't think I'll ever. I mean, I don't think I'll ever fully love / I will go crazy for, primarily because it's not my kind of fighter. I did own one for a time. I CCU'd up past it, and I did fly it for a little bit, and I had to occasionally pop into those things just to remind myself of my particular position. But yeah, like, it's not something that I'm overly in love with, but I do appreciate its significance, and I very much respect any person who can fly that thing with any high level degree of skills, because yeah, it can be incredibly deadly if you're given the right level of encouragement. So we enter the last room before the holodecks, and we are greeted with a sight that for some is a bitter pill to swallow, as well as introducing the best starter ship in the game, which now I feel that that particular title is quickly becoming not so true. Or I say it's less about the best starter ship in the game and more the best first upgrade of the game. We'll go into that in a minute, but we'll have a look at the Redeemer first. So the Redeemer has undergone a bit of a nerf since Invictus launch week, and unfortunately one of its biggest, proudest features has changed a bit somewhat, which, yeah, for some this is a bitter pill to swallow, but for those who don't know what this is, the Aegis Redeemer was a community-made project to create a gunship inside Star Citizen. Originally, it was, I think, a troop transport, and then it evolved into a gunship-style vessel. And this vessel is what I would actually consider to be a really good introduction for multi-role, for multi-crew, because as you can see, you've got 2 turrets, you've got a remote turret at the bottom there, as well as a pilot who can still do some pretty cool stuff. So this would be a great way to introduce a few of your friends into Star Citizen while also having a pretty cool engine system. I think they've updated the model a bit, because the engines look a lot better now than they used to before. Yeah, that is kind of cool, I'm not going to lie. You also got access to a little tiny turret at the back there as well. But no, so this particular vessel was incredibly powerful for one particular reason, which is it had, on the 2 of its turrets, size 5 bearing ballistic repeaters. It was ridiculous. You could have so much DPS out of this thing that it could take on and tank a hammerhead on its own. That is how good that this weapon was. Obviously, something had to be done. So now, I think I like the fact that they've nerfed it. It sounds weird. I had this for a while. I fell in love with this thing as well. Like, I was awestruck, and I had it, and it was really good. And yeah, it was an incredibly potent weapons system. I mean, in terms of weapons itself, it has a vector lock thruster, shielding. Yeah, so it's a very tanky and very powerful vessel. So in terms of its missiles, it's got 16 size 2 missiles, which is pretty cool. It's got, on the rear remote turret, the Varipuk M5A cannons. Or is that at the rear? Is there a rear-mounted turret? No, it is the front of the app. So in terms of its weapon, it has a few M5. It has M5A cannons. It also has the whereabouts is its main weapon? There it is. Two size 4 CV 788 cannons, which are the cannons on the side. But its main armament its big turret armament of 2 size 5 AD5B turrets is now the AD4B turrets, which, as we'll hop into this particular thing, is a bit of a... For some people, they're, like, horrified because they're like, oh my god, the thing's been nerfed, it's terrible. Oh. But it's like, dude, this thing could take on a hammerhead on its own. It really did have a lot of firepower. So I will agree, it did need to get nerfed. It did need to receive it did need to have its weapon size taken down a notch. Everything else, though, about it, still a really good vessel. And to a degree, its troop transportingness still kind of survived, because even if you've got a full crew of gunners, you have slots for 4 players over here with a weapon rack down below. And if we plop downstairs, you have an additional 4 seats for people who want to just use the beds for that one. Because don't forget, you won't be affected by the physics in the ship if you use the beds here. So that is a thing that you can do. In fact, wait 1 second. Can you actually... Can you adjust the lighting? Oh my god, yes! That is so cool! You can adjust the lighting in this thing. That's so cool. Auxiliary? Oh my god, that's so cool. That is so cool. They've updated that. I really like that. I'm not gonna lie, I really do like that. This is what I mean about modern ship design. So good. Anyway, so yes, the Vanguard, so the Aegis Redeemer is a ship that previously used to have a lot more bite in its bark, but now is a solid, reliable weapon, which I still think has a lot of firepower. I mean, Christ, 2 size 4 Gatling repeaters with cannons on the front and turrets and everything. It still packs a massive punch. It can do a fair amount of damage. And if you're doing bounty hunting missions, or even, you know, on the level of ERT, HRT, or even VHRT, which is basically high risk, very large, very high risk, or extreme risk categories, you can still come out on top of a lot of things, even when running solo. You just can't dominate the battlefield anymore with this, and that's what's probably pissing a lot of people off. But still, the Redeemer. It is a very powerful vessel, and it certainly has a lot of... it has very much has a good reputation to work from as well, which is fair and understandable. So, moving on over to the, as said, the best starting ship of the game. I'll have to go try and find the OG one before we look into any of the others, which is over there. Well, okay, as I mentioned before, the figure quote best starter ship in the game is a bit of a dubious one, to say the least, because the Avenger Titan is a ship that has undergone some changes as well as some improvements, but still, but at the same time, it's also stayed relatively the same. Like, I was trying to find words to explain this. It's been around for a long time, almost about 10 years now, and this vessel, like, when was it released? Yeah, about 10 years. We're about just over the 9-year mark, so we're coming into that one. So GG, fucking GG for this thing. I feel old. Oh god. But yeah, she was released in 2015, so we've just hit the 9-year mark. But this vessel has been a major... Okay, so I'm trying to find the right words to describe it. This ship, for me, it was my first major upgrade in Star Citizen. I didn't know what vessel to go for. I saw this ship, and I thought, you know what, this looks kind of interesting, and it's got a cargo bay, and it was a big improvement over the Aurora. So I was like, you know what, let's have a look-see. Let me have a try at this particular ship, and I did not regret it. This thing is absolutely incredible. And as time has gone by, this ship has retained its place as best starter ship in the game, but now I think with all of the other options that we're getting to, and that are also cheaper, it's now becoming the best first upgrade of the game. So there are still some things here and there that they've sort of tweaked and adjusted. For example, the weapon systems have changed a bit. It's impressive size 4 Revenant Gatling gun as well as the fact that they've changed the weapons on it from Panther Repeaters to Omniskis for some reason. But overall, she's retained still her same major bonus performances. And when it comes to talking about getting into Star Citizen, my language for this vessel has still retained more or less the same. It's like a plane, so it's a lot easier to manage in Atmo. You've got a cargo bay that you can walk into, so you can have a much easier time of it. You've got an array of both size 2 missiles and you've got a cross section. You've got missiles, you've got guns, you've got ballistics, you've got lasers. All of these things make for an incredibly decent and perfect, very good ship to work with if you're relatively new. She also can take a punishment. She can take a slap or two as well. And as a go-to, like as a ship that you want to just get from A to B on, the Quantum Drive gives you the ability to fly between pretty much every sector within the Stanton system without any significant problem. So again, this thing is an absolutely incredible ship. However, as time goes by, I'm beginning to get a sense that this vessel is now, as mentioned, becoming less of the best starter ship in the game and more of the best first upgrade, owing to, as mentioned before, all of the new vessels coming in at much cheaper prices. She has an 8 SCU's carrying capacity, and she looks gorgeous, even in her older state of internals. I think the only thing you really need to do is maybe change this little bit up to have more living accommodations on side, and you're more or less golden. Moving on to its other variant, you have the the Titan Stalker. This is the bounty hunting variant, which replaces, and apparently needs to be fixed, replaces its cargo bay with pods that you can actually carry a bunch of prisoners to their intended destination, which is kind of cool. For some reason, these were all left as open. There we go. So what you would do is you would pop the person in, and the person would then be stuck in there until their time to go to prison would occur. Weapon-wise, this vessel has the same armament, size 2 missiles, Omniskis, and a Revenant Gatling on the front. And because it's like slightly heavier, obviously because of owing to all of the bounty hunting aspects to it, but it still is really maneuverable, really versatile, and has a lot to give with that one. The other variants of Avengers, the other variants of the Avenger series, we have the Advocacy variant, which is obviously just the Advocacy paint scheme. Nothing really fancy. The only thing is that it has a slightly different weapon, which, Omniskis on the front and a Tarantula size 4 on the front as well, which is a bit kind of, actually to be fair, I don't know if that's a size, I don't think that's a size 4. I know that the Advocacy has its different things for that, but I'm beginning to think, yeah, I mean, indeed, that's intriguing. Apparently there's a training variant as well, which I've not seen, but this is the Titan Avenger Renegade. But what's its weapon complement? Because it doesn't have Vari Sucks 3, Omniski, size 1. Oh no, it's a size 3. So it actually goes, yeah, so it has a size 3 for some reason. Oh, this must be before they changed it. This must be an older variant of the ship, GG. But yeah, this is a size 3 Tarantula, or sorry, 11 series broadsword cannon. I used to know these things as tarantulas because of the design mechanics. But yeah, so this is actually an older design. So when you get this thing, you're gonna have to beef up its weaponry. GG. Yeah, that right there is an old style gimbal mount. Because you used to be, whenever you used to use the gimbal mount systems, you had to have a size down to utilize any gimbal mounts, whereas if you wanted to put a fixed weapon in, you could have the size slotting for that one. But yeah, so pretty much the same ship, only it's got a different skin and actually somewhat lacking in firepower. Then you have the Warlock. The Warlock is a... Well, if you're feeling sick from the motion sickness, I don't blame you, but this is a dedicated EMP platform, and as you can see by the very fancy pants technical gizmos inside, you sacrifice the cargo bay for the ability to ruin everyone's fun by zapping their electronics. Now, I don't know if this particular variant of EMP ship is going to be very common, but considering that this is one of the more larger EMP devices in Star Citizen, it may still have quite a strong level of it may have the capacity to completely nuke everything. I mean, if going by the trailer as well, where the guy was able to turn off an entire block district in, I want to say, Arccore, then there is a very strong possibility that we could potentially see some scary scary levels of EMP factoring for that. But there you go. There you have it. We've talked a lot about these ships during Invictus launch week, so I didn't really want to go too crazy with the in-depthness. But at the same time, we had a look into each of these particular things. And yeah, I know. I like the Avenger series, and I feel like they are their impact towards Star Citizen is very much, their impact has been felt across the ages, and now as the game enters into a new stage, a new era of Star Citizen, these vessels, which have long since been the guardians and the help and the protectors and the assistants to those who are new, now start to make their way for other ships to take their place, and for them to now be known as the best upgrade option for anyone new to Star Citizen. So we arrive at the hallway before the holodeck, and as you can see by the panicked people, they are looking at the Sabre series of ships once again. This is, of course, the Sabre Firebird. Now, a lot of these two particular vessels, I don't believe I've covered before, because I think this vessel might have been brand new during Invictus launch week, but I'm not quite sure. I think maybe. But this is the second time we've covered it, so we will definitely give it a bit more of its fair dues. So this is the updated frame to the Sabre series, and I won't lie, it looks incredibly nice. It kind of has that Sabre Raven kind of vibe with the internal systems on the hulls and everything else like that. But its main appeal for those in this particular regard are for the missiles, because this vessel has up to 24 size 3 missiles. The Thunderbolt Mark 3s to be exact. So if I just have a quick look-see. There we go. Perfect. So I'll put the power on. Yeah, we're definitely not getting the ability to turn the power on for this ship. I can spool the quantum drive for no reason. Nope. Just press the self-destruct button and watch it as it detonates inside the building. Anyway, so this particular ship does look pretty... Oh, God. Oh, there we go. Perfect. So this particular ship does look pretty good. I'm not going to lie. It also has a couple of size 3s, I believe. Yes, it has a couple of... It has 2 size 3 Mantis GT220 keep saying repeaters, but it's more of the Gatling guns. So this particular vessel does have a couple of machine guns fixed into place from the looks of it. Yep, it does. But the thing is, that's not what the main weapon armaments of this vessel should be. This is a dedicated missile platform. You want to be spamming the missiles as much as possible with a 12 missile spread with a 1 reload. You want to be using this to basically spam anything in front of you to death and then moving on to the next target. Overall, I'd say this vessel looks pretty cool. It's not really for me in terms of its design mechanics, but it does look pretty cool. There's the missile rack underneath for anyone who's curious about this particular thing. But no, I'd say this particular ship has a place in the verse, and I very much like the variety in the kind of combat applications, because up until then, we only had the Talon Shrike as a dedicated missile platform over its various Talon, over the normal Talon as well, which is pretty cool. I would say, yeah, it's nice to have a human variant of a missile spam. I mean, I know you've got the Freelancer Miss, but that's a much larger vessel, whereas this one, I think, is a normal platform. Speaking on variant of the ship, we now have a unique version of the Sabre, which is the Sabre Peregrine. Peregrine? I want to say Peregrine. Yeah, Peregrine. So this is the racing variant of the ship. Because obviously, as time goes by, we actually have seen quite a large amount of Star Citizen being involved in racing. The Daymar Rally, the Atmo live sport event that took place after CitizenCon, though I didn't personally go to that event. Though there are a lot of events in Star Citizen, IRL for Star Citizen that have dedicated racers going to it. In fact, one of the leaders in my clan actually did some racing. Well, members of my clan org have done racing and have done pretty damn well with it. So this, being the latest variant of the Saber series, is a bloody fast vessel. It'll zip through the verse as well fast as buggery. In terms of its defensibility, though, it don't have any, or at least, it don't have any weapons. It is 100% a civilian vessel, no weapons at all. But it does have an armored frame. How fast did this bugger go? Like, how fast does it go? Okay, so SCM speed's 267. Speeds. Fuck me. Okay, that's fast. Okay, it has a maximum speed of 1,447 meters per second. And it gets to its main speed in about maximum speed in about 10 seconds. And it's very slow when it comes to getting from max to zero, being 312 seconds and 312 seconds for that. And it's 57 seconds for its SCM speed. Whew. Yeah, no, it's not the fastest when it comes to slowing down. But if you want to go fast, oh boy. So yeah, this thing is dedicated to assist any and all of its pilots in order to get from A to B. I'm actually going to hop into the ship. I think it's going to be the exact same cockpit array, but I am curious to see what its lighting is. Oh, I like the lighting. Yeah, I like the lighting of this thing. This is cool. This is very cool. So yeah, this ship is cool. I like it. I am not a racer, but I do appreciate its speeds, and I do like its aesthetics. I wouldn't say I fully love the overall mod. I don't like the Saber Raven style of ship design, but I do appreciate the modernization attempts for this particular thing, because we can't unfortunately have the Saber Raven because it was only limited as part of a sort of limited event / promotion of a graphics card by, I think, AMD, or I think it was an AMD graphics card. So obviously we can't have the original, but this and the Saber Raven is a Saber Firebird and the Peregrine are both really good vessels for that. So we unfortunately are once again at the end of the day, going towards the holodecks. But regardless, I've had a good time. I've seen some of the stuff. There's not really been any new vessels to the Aegis Day, so unfortunately, there isn't a huge lot of nice, squeaky new things to show. But there are some things that are in the verse, and we've seen their effectiveness. And a certain someone I know actually now owns one of them. That being this. This is the Idris. Now, I'm not entirely sure why we have the Idris in the concept section of the game, because, well, we already have been in one. I've tried to be into one in Invictus Launch Week, and sadly, due to the servers being an absolute bloody pain, and my recording software being an absolute pain at the same time, it meant that I wasn't able to get the full experience, which is a real shame. But I will do my utmost in future editions of Invictus Launch Week to get that Idris shot, or I'll just get into one at one point and be like, right, we're doing this live, fuck it. But no, so the Idris is a very famous ship. It's one of the ships that if you've seen the Squadron 42, you've seen the trailers inside for Star Citizen, as well as some of the events where developers and AI and whatever took on players as well. And also, if you've been in Xenothreat, it's the most common, the most recognizable, and also semi-common sub-capital ship. Oh no, it is actually. Is it a capital ship? I want to say it is a capital ship. It is a frigate. Fucking AI pushing me out of the way. If we were in... I like how the game gives me the option. Lethal takedown. Damn it. I like how it gives me the option, though. It's like lethal takedown time. Oh, but one day. Anyway. So, the Idris series of ships is was designed, well, it was coined by the phrase by Mesa himself, and also was his sort of symbol of humanity taking the steps against any Xeno threats. It is not just a combat vessel with a big gun on the front. It's actually also a baby carrier, because the frontal section of the ship opens up and it allows you to have, which opens up into a sort of consistent hangar bay that can house up to 3 Gladius-sized vessels. Obviously, depending on the future of Star Citizen, that number of vessels may vary depending on how many people want to try and scrunch up as much as possible. But its main sort of main function in this regard is to be able to go around the verse, patrolling certain zones and exerting certain levels of authority. You can buy the Idris, however, not in its military form. Instead, you can buy the Idris K. No, not the K. The Idris P, which is a patrolling variant that doesn't have any. It doesn't have the big gun at the front, and it does have it has a few other little things for it. But you can buy conversion kits, which allows you to upgrade it to either the Idris K, which is a variant that doesn't have the big railgun at the front, but instead has a giant laser gun at the front. So depending on what particular preferences you have for that, and it means that players or citizens will be able to fully benefit from the defense militia contract that was initiated to provide additional means for the citizens of the verse to protect themselves from either Vandal or threats like Xeno threat or groups of pirates or anything else like that, which is currently running as an event going on at the moment. So do things to note out for in that respect. Anyway, moving on, we are presented with a ship that is, in fact, in concept, which is the Vulcan. Now, this ship fucking fascinates me, and I love it. I am so amped up to seeing it, because I see this thing getting ever more details and everything else, and I absolutely love it, and I definitely want to make it part of my fleet's collection. So, the Vulcan, for those who don't know, is a dedicated medium repair ship. It is designed to go into the fleet during or just after a battle and provide support in the form of drones that come out of the side to provide the means to repair vessels damaged or resupply or anything else like that. Its main benefit, as mentioned, it has the drone. Well, it has 4 barred drones, if going by the wiki's description. But basically, the 4 drones which are in these particular pods, they come out and they provide ammunition, fuel, and the ability to repair bits of the ship that have sustained damage, which is pretty cool. So it then means that for limited amounts of time, or if you're working at a station that is relatively new, you've not really established yourself, and you want to kind of have a dedicated platform, but you need something now, but you haven't got the facilities and launch. You have this. The Vulcan is a very useful vessel that I am very much craving. I'm like, logistics. I'm like craving this thing. It's like, ooh, you look like something that could help supply the front lines with weapons and equipment. Oh, you can repair vessels too. Yes, this is how my brain has developed in its as I get older. So I am like mega freaking hyped for this thing. Ooh. I want the ship. Oh, logistics. Oh, it looks so cool. I also like the fact that it's got VTOL thrusters, which is going to be super fucking useful when you're on the front lines, because you're not always going to be in space. You're going to be on the ground. And it also looks like a pretty small-ish platform that allows you to be able to land anywhere as well. It's that fucking useful. I love it. I absolutely love it. And I am very keen on seeing this thing. Obviously, we're not going to see this vessel, sadly, for a long time. Or at least we're not going to see it until drones become a thing. Because the main core essence of this ship is drones. And obviously, we're not going to be able to utilize that until the drone features become far more prevalent. And there are far more ships, even in-game right now, that use drones, which is a shame. But I do want that ship. I will come for you one day, I swear. I am actually going to try and get that ship at some point, so, watch this space. Finally, we look at the Nautilus, which is an intriguing ship. It is a mine layer ship. its main purpose is to ensure that if anyone wants to get to your location, they either need to have a sweeper or they need to accept the fact that they're going to have casualties, because this thing is designed to prevent... This is basically area denial. And I've had conversations with my friends about this and how this thing could be really useful in terms of the space stations that were announced in CitizenCon. Spoilers. But basically, one of the friends had a conversation saying that you could imagine that you could have... You could say there's a concept is, imagine, if you will, you have a space station and you can actually choose to have certain groups or allies who you can trade with, and that you could whitelist them from your drones or from your mines or from whatever. Or you could tell them to go a specific route in order to be able to avoid the minefield around your station. Because mines is something that we haven't really thought of as a concept to deal with in Star Citizen, and in terms of being able to sweep for them, well, that'll be interesting to say the least. Though this thing isn't just about mines. This thing can also drop drones as well, which is kind of intriguing. So, as mentioned, it allows you to just... So, hang on, here's a few of the drones that we have on the wiki for it. So, the first mine is the homing mine, which is basically traditional mine that's inside space. It detects something and it talks about... It detects something, it flies towards it, and then goes boom. And going from the description, it apparently has the same explosive power as a Sci-fi torpedo. So the Stalker's 5 torpedoes that I've seen... That's really fucking terrifying for someone who has like 5 or 6 of these little buggers coming straight at them. You then have the Nemo drone, which is a neutralize and employ mine ordnance. It's designed for identifying, deactivating, and collecting the deployable mines. In accordance with the Amendment 17C1 of the Militia Mobilization Act, a mine retrieval device must be present and functional aboard all armed mine-laying craft. That makes sense. So, in order to counter any mine-laying options in there, the Nautilus can have the ability to deactivate the mines as well as have the mines as well. And then finally, you have what's known as the Sentry Mine, which is the Bearing VLR-11 Sentry Mine, which is a mine fitted with weapons that will fire on hostiles within range. Its primary definitive defense can house 2 Size-2 guns, which I'm assuming players will be able to customize whatever kind of weapons they want to go with, either laser repeaters or ballistics. I imagine you probably want to have a nice mixture of the two, so that either A, you've got lasers which will be able to deactivate the shields, and the ballistics, because if you want to say fuck you to anything that comes near you and pilot snipe, then that is also a feature as well. That is, don't forget guys, 4.0 may have something stripped away from it, but you will be able to have armor in the game in the future, and we're gonna have people being pilot sniped. That's gonna be so much fun or so much pain, depending on your particular experiences. So, there you guys have it. That is Aegis Day done, wrapped up on a bow with a string. It has been a pretty decent day. Sadly, nothing really exciting in terms of new shit. I mean, okay, we've got the new Peregrine, which is it's the Peregrine's first event. So credit where credit's due. It is the newest ship in the fleet. It was released around the 28th of August, so I suppose that's something to talk about. But really, Aegis is one of those sort of older style ship manufacturers who has been around the verse for a while, and we're all aware of what they can offer to what they can offer both in military and in civilian. A lot more leaning into the military side of things naturally, but at the same time we are seeing some pretty impressive civilian vessels. Obviously, the Reclaimer being the most notable of its civilian core fleet as well. But as mentioned, all good things come to an end, and as such, I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. So, thank you all so very much for your support to the channel, as well as also tuning in for this one. And if you want to see more, feel free to hit the subscribe button down below. I also very much encourage, throughout this entire series, for everyone to have a word, to speak about ships, to sort of talk about what your favorite ships are. I love discussing ships in Star Citizen, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, where we will see Misk and Mirai. I will say they have definitely improved a lot since last year, and they're certainly adding to the fleet. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll catch you next time, guys.